Welcome, everyone. We are live today on Friday, October 31st, 2025. I've got Mark Safran here to talk about Smartsheet, and this is episode 159. You can check out the link on the page there for related links, or if you'd like to leave a comment on the episode, it's at augforums.com/episode 159. Mark, thanks for coming on today and being willing to do a live broadcast on some Smartsheet stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So we talked. I can't even remember when it was now. Like I think I put it in the description on the episode, but whatever it was last month or the month before out in New Jersey at the Acumatica user group there, and we did the Power BI workshop out there, and then you came out to me afterwards and were telling me how you're actually using Smartsheet for the dashboards. And to me, Smartsheet in my brain, Smartsheet's always been about being like a data capture tool or like it's a spreadsheet in the cloud. And I never really thought about it as a reporting tool. And so I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let's just do it as a live broadcast, and I can learn about it, and anyone else can learn about it as well. So let's just get into it. Or actually, you know what? Give us a little bit of your brief origin story. Maybe you could tell us where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you got involved with mid-market ERP systems.
Yeah, absolutely. Grew up in Northern Jersey. Still live in New Jersey right now, Manhattan. I've been working at a firm, Chelsea Lighting, for the past 8.5 years or so now. We're a specialty subcontractor in kind of the commercial construction space here in the city. I was a Holy Cross graduate up in Worcester, Massachusetts. I was a computer science guy, and I think that's kind of how I naturally fell into the tech and the data side of whatever company I was going to be at. Right, there was always going to be some drawback to do back and full stack dev and things like that. So a few years ago, we needed a point person internally to assist with our ERP migration, and that became me. That's kind of how I'm in the seat now, and that's how I've kind of come to learn anything and everything about Acumatica.
Awesome. So you were there at Chelsea Lighting before Acumatica and involved in the whole implementation, or how'd that play out?
Correct. Yeah. So I joined Chelsea in May of 2017. We were on a heavily unstandardized version of Sage 100 at the time. And I had actually assisted with our first migration of going from the 2017 version up to 2020 cloud. And then after that, we kind of, we're still yearning for some additional, I'd say, flexibility in the system, some additional access to data, reporting, things like that. So I was internally, I was on the team that did actually a lot of the, the discovery, the selection of, which new ERP system we're going to migrate to. So I was one of the folks who made the decision to select Acumatica, and then I was our PM basically for the entire deployment, full through and through.
Cool. So yeah, you've been through the whole thing on Acumatica. I will mention, I think we have a little bit of a delay. I don't know which end it's on, but it's okay. I think it's still coming through, and just the nature of doing a live broadcast. It's sort of like an interview, like in a war where, the person like takes a few seconds and then they're able to respond. So yeah, no problem. We'll just work through it. It sounds like you've been totally involved in the Acumatica side. Smartsheet though, were you using that before Acumatica with Sage 100, or did that come in after?
Yeah, so we've also been using Smartsheet pretty heavily now at Chelsea since probably late 2017. It was one of the first kind of projects that I had started working on. We had a couple of light licenses and stuff here. One department was using it to kind of track a daily to-do list, track estimates, things like that. I had a little bit of experience with it from my previous company, and I knew that there was some more kind of flexibility, some automation, things like that I thought would be really valuable to the project management team, if not eventually then other departments as well. So we had done a pretty heavy, I would say, deployment and a pretty heavy, full-scale tenant build-out of Smartsheet, really from 2017 through early 2019. Little by little, adding extra pieces, adding extra kind of, little apps and add-ons and things like that. And pretty definitively, from the beginning, as soon as we really started getting the reporting element of it, rounded out. we were feeding it with ERP data or CRM data or whatever data we could frankly find. So it was a lot harder to get it out of Sage. It's way easier to get it out of Acumatica. But yeah, we've pretty much always been feeding our metrics and our KPIs and I don't know, all things into the Smartsheet platform.
And so I know we're going to focus on looking at what you're doing with the dashboards there, but is that all Smartsheet's doing for you? Is it just a reporting tool, or is it also sort of like a module in alongside the ERP in that you're using it to capture data? Like, how are you using it in addition to reporting?
Yeah, so it's funny in any of these software conversations, right? There's usually kind of the debate of, well, hey, what's your source of truth for data, right? Where does everything live? What's kind of your core line of business app? Obviously, you're going to fill out the rest of the suite with other ancillary tools that you need that are industry specific and task and job specific. But Smartsheet is predominantly our main tool that all of our team is using. Acumatica is there. Obviously, you need a financial system. Our finance team would certainly say, no, that's our core tool, absolutely. But no, I look at Acumatica really for our pre-construction, like our estimating team and our sales team, as just the place that quote data needs to get entered to at some point. And for our project managers, that's just the place where you need to cut POs from. But in reality, most of the day-to-day work and the day-to-day time spend is inside of the Smartsheet platform. So we have both native Smartsheet data or data that's being we have intake forms that are going straight into Smartsheet. People use that for their tracking charts, for kind of their daily meetings, for any and all PM related tasks, for logistics related tasks, estimating related tasks, things like that. And then because that kind of had already become our core kind of destination, the homepage on most people's Chrome browsers, I would say, that's when we started feeding in the other line of business apps data into that same platform.
That makes sense. So that's why you want them to stay in Smartsheet when they need reporting, because then they don't have to click out into another system.
For sure, right? If I've already got 75% of their data and their metrics and their reporting there, might as well bring the rest of it as well. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So your ERP sounds like ERP is just a conceptual term. It's the term that talks to the fact that you want systems, or you want everything in one place in theory. It doesn't always mean it's the same piece of software, but it's really the theory of having all your departments communicate in a digital fashion. And so your ERP is predominantly Smartsheet, it sounds like, and then Acumatica is a piece of the ERP, but it's not even the majority of it, especially when you're talking about the operation side of the business.
For sure, yeah. We kind of sometimes structure it or label it the PMO instead, and hey, what are the tech tools that are involved there? And yeah, not to put hard numbers on it, but it's probably 51-49 in favor of Smartsheet versus Acumatica in terms of what's getting utilized the most frequently. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And I'm also curious, being in the construction space, I personally don't have a ton of construction experience, but construction space always strikes me as it's like a messy, when you're dealing with anything project oriented, not just construction, but anything project oriented, it's just because it's this job shop mentality of everything you're doing is a unique end product. There's a messy process that's involved to get to that unique product. And when you have a messy process, the tools that you use need to be flexible. And so it's part of the reason why you reach for Smartsheet, because it's sort of a low code, no code way to continually refine the process and change what data is being captured and all that kind of stuff. Is that part of why you think you landed there?
I think that's definitely a major factor in it. And it's funny, right? There's kind of a beauty in the mess of everything, right? And then in the nuance and the semantic of how every job's a little bit different. And what's kind of the challenge of building a PMO from scratch, in the first place is how do we come up with some standard process, some kind of synergy that exists, that hey, whether it's a tiny little project with a single light fixture on it, or a 10-floor restack at a new Class A building, and we've got hundreds of thousands of fixtures getting there. What are the core steps that are being kind of repeated every single time, no matter what? And what was really nice about Smartsheet is kind of that scalability that exists just natively in kind of their their core assets. And it's incredibly simplistic, actually. And there's really only three kind of core assets that exist across the entire platform, and then how you can kind of build those up and scale them up or scale them down depending on the t-shirt size of the project. I think that's what has allowed us to not just build on it in the first place, but continue to use it as, the nature of construction, especially here in New York, has constantly changed.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never thought about using it that way. It sounds like you've really scaled it up to use it as a low code, no code ERP system in a sense. That's always the debate. Like, well, it used to be more of a debate. It used to be a debate of like, you go back to like the 1980s, 1990s. It was like, do we build our own ERP or do we buy one? Now I think most people buy one, but you're sort of swung it back to that build your own, but you did it on a modern cloud platform. I think some people do something similar with Salesforce on the CRM side. It's more of a platform than it is a application in a sense. And it sounds like that's kind of how you're using Smartsheet.
For sure. And given that we had kind of a pretty robust Smartsheet tenant already, and just how we wanted everything to be reported on and visible to the organization, that was one of the major factors that allowed us to choose Acumatica as our ERP when we were kind of doing our discovery and doing our reviews across the other options when we were migrating away from Sage. And frankly, the data flexibility and the fact that Acumatica was modular enough in kind of that purchasing side of things that sure, you can add an inventory module if you need it. Hey, you can add the construction module if you need it. You can add some of these other things if you need it. Dashboards exist if you want it, but every single sheet, honestly, that was for me, is the fact that every single basically grid or embedded table on any page has the export to Excel button, or you could do a business event on literally any GI screen and say, hey, send it here, send it there, send it there. That for us was the biggest selling point, because the rest of it, the actual the keystrokes and the button clicks, for the day-to-day to how to cut a PO, how to process an AP bill, whatever, right? It's at some point it's kind of 6 of 1. So yeah, I think the ease of which you can pull data both into the system and export it out of the system so that you could piggyback an existing tech stack like we had. I think that was a major factor for us.
Cool. So last question before we really get into the reporting side, which will be the focus of today. Last question is, I just lost it. Give me a second. On the Smartsheet side. So which modules in Acumatica are you using? So I assume you're using General Ledger. Well, you tell me what modules.
Yeah, so we're on the construction edition of Acumatica, and in addition to that, yeah, we're in the GL module. We're doing we actually do use the inventory module for just some other kind of nuances behind the scenes, but other than that, it's a pretty bare bones platform. Some really nice customizations in there that we've done to kind of hijack some of the out of the box tools to better serve our needs in the kind of distribution-esque space that we kind of live in. And our VAR's been super helpful in putting a lot of that stuff together. But yeah, from a true module standpoint, there's not a lot of fanciness going on. It's the construction edition, and that's pretty much it.
So General Ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable.
Yep.
You said inventory module, although are you even tracking inventory balances? You're just using it for some setup stuff, I think, right?
Just using it for setup, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So no like inventory value on your balance sheet for the company, which I think is pretty common for construction. Then you've got sales orders. Is that used at all?
Not at all.
Not.
No.
Purchase orders. I assume
purchase orders. Yep. Yeah.
And then the project accounting module is the main crux of the construction edition. So I assume you're using that as well.
Correct. Yeah, those are kind of piggybacked. You get those kind of 2 extra workspace modules on the side when you activate construction. Yeah.
And I think there's also like a project management module, but it sounds like that's really where you're using Smartsheet. You're not using Acumatica for that.
Correct. Yep.
So Acumatica is like the mess of managing a construction project is where you're using the flexible Smartsheet, and then when the hard dollars need to land in a ledger, whether it's the project accounting ledger or ultimately the general ledger, that's Acumatica for you.
100%. Yep.
Perfect. All right, cool. All right, great overview, great background. Let's dive into why don't you show me what you're doing in Smartsheet reporting wise. Let me know when you got it queued up and I'll put you on the screen there.
Yeah, for sure. So, actually, if you want, we can start with the that one other PNG that I had kind of loaded, which is just kind of the
Oh
the
yeah, yeah. Let's put that on.
the basics of Smartsheet. So I'll kind of start with like, hey, here's my here's my I'm going to pretend to be a Smartsheet salesperson for a minute, right? And what are the basics of kind of the platform? So,
Oh,
as
which
you had
by
kind
the
of
way, you're not, right? Wait, I do want to put this point in there. So like,
yep,
yeah,
yep.
both of us are like totally independent. Like we're not like selling Acumatica or Smartsheet here. But I think I don't know if I could say this live. Like you said you like the Smartsheet application so much that when it was a public company, you actually invested in it. Am I allowed to say that? Well, I already said it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I was a personal shareholder. Absolutely. Yep.
A sliver of the enterprise you had, but now they're I think you said they're private now, so you no longer are a shareholder in Smartsheet.
Correct. I'm no longer financially invested, but I'm certainly emotionally invested, I would say, and just raw interest wise, invested in everything that they're doing. So yeah, but
And
no,
you
not
participated,
affiliated by any means. Yeah.
but you participate in user groups. You said they have a conference even coming up that you go to. Maybe tell me about that. What was
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So yeah, they do very similar to Acumatica, where I met you at one of the user groups. Smartsheet has a pretty well built out community, and that exists both in kind of the virtual forum in community.smartsheet.com, and then they also do in person user groups too. So pretty much all the major cities, and they started doing them in Europe as well. Pretty much like every quarter, I would say they're hitting all the major markets again, and it's just in person meetups, very similar to what we did in New Jersey about a month and a half ago at this point, and it's one or two customer use cases, kind of share stories, and then the rest of the afternoon is just collaborating, meeting people, asking them how long they've been on the platform, seeing tips and tricks, and it's pretty rewarding. So yeah, there's a good group of folks on the kind of the project marketing side of things and product marketing side of things, I should say, that have built out a really nice avenue for customer engagement, both with Smartsheet personnel directly as well as with the other kind of customer bases. And then
And
yeah, and
you
then
tell me like that's where you find the real value. It's those sidebars. It's the like, and same for me. Like you need a structure, you need some agenda for the gathering, but like it's those sidebar conversations that really are the most value of getting together in a user group, right?
100%, 100%. That's where the LinkedIn chats start to really pick up, right? You meet somebody like you and I met, right? We chatted for 10 minutes at the end of the user group, and then since then we've chatted a number of times, and yeah, I would say it's a very similar type of engagement, and yeah, that's really where the cool stuff starts to come together.
And then in addition to those local ones, it looks like there's also this thing going on. Is this an annual thing? Are you going to this? Tell me more about the Smartsheet
Yeah,
Engage that we have on the screen here.
for sure, yeah. So this is their kind of one big annual conference, but very similar to what Acumatica does as well. And yeah, this happens to be next week, so I think it's next it's Tuesday to Friday, if I'm remembering my dates correctly. But yeah, so I'll be out there. This will be my third year attending in person. I attended the COVID year virtually, like I think most people were able to do. But yeah, this is great. This is kind of their fun reset and kind of a agenda setting for the year. On a more mass level, to share with everybody what's on the product roadmap, what's coming up, what are kind of the things to be looking forward to as far as changes to the platform. So again, very similar to what Acumatica does at Summit. This is Smartsheet's equivalent of it. Yep.
So next week, November 5th through 7th in Seattle, Washington, you'll be out there. Cool. Any idea like how many like Acumatica draws? I think it's been around like close to 4,000 these days. What's Smartsheet has? Like more than is that like the 10 to 20,000 range or what do you think?
I'm not sure it's up that high. I want to say last year, if I remember correctly, it was in that also that 4 to 5 range, and
Okay.
every year it's they got to book a couple extra rooms and this and that. So
Yeah.
it's actually, and I think Summit this year is going to be up at the same Seattle Convention Center that Engage is always at. So
Oh,
I would
this
say
is
they're
at the Seattle Convention Center. Okay. Oh, yeah.
yep.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Their headquarters is in Bellevue, kind of, just across town there. So, yeah, this is where they've been hosting it pretty consistently. Yep.
Interesting. And that's where Acumatica's headquarters are in Bellevue. That's interesting. Okay. Cool. Cool.
So, yeah,
All
some
right.
some
Let's get
fun
back to
stuff
your
though.
building
Yeah.
block here. I'll put that back on for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, it's a good clarifier to put out there. I'm not affiliated. I'm not a salesperson. I'm just a client. So yeah, I think the basics of Smartsheet I think are pretty interesting, and again, one of the things that's just super appealing for me, right, on a platform is that they didn't really try to overdo it. In essence, you have and you kind of look at the pyramid there, right? You've got sheets, you've got reports, and they call it the executive view, right? But that's your dashboards. And when I kind of teach and do orientation for new hires here, I always say it's okay. Those are your blue squares, those are your orange squares, and then those are your green circles. And when I start screen sharing in a minute here, you'll see that those are the little icons that designate the asset type. But that's it. That's the whole I would say kind of module and whole schema, right, of where data lives. And the sheet is the only place where data actually lives inside a Smartsheet. Everything above that on the pyramid, right? So your reports, and then obviously your executive views, your dashboards, things to that effect. Those are just different visuals and different ways of kind of manipulating those same kind of two-dimensional grid style information, into other views and into groupings and categories and nicer filters and things like that. So what you had kind of alluded to, in the beginning of, I always thought of Smartsheet as kind of an intake tool, a data tool, things like that, and less about the upper half of the pyramid here. That's still the core of the platform, and that's still the only place, like I said, where the data lives. And you can have all kinds of what we typically refer to as native Smartsheet data. So data that's inputted into a sheet via a web form entry, data that's inputted into a sheet just by somebody working in that sheet, just like you would a Google Doc, right, or Google Sheet, I should say, or an Excel or something like that. But then what's I think really really important and honestly the biggest, like I would say, extra add-on tool that I always recommend to people to use if they are thinking about becoming a Smartsheet client is one of those extra kind of connectors and integrations. It's a premium app called Data Shuttle. And Data Shuttle is basically just this kind of native API-esque thing that says, cool, take data that lives in 2D grid format, whether it's a CSV file, whether it's an Excel, whether it's a Google Sheet, whatever it is, and just map those columns straight into a sheet destination. And that tiny little extra premium app adder is really the difference maker of what says, hey, yeah, it's a native reporting tool. It's somewhere I can do a tracking chart. It's somewhere I can update my my day to day, versus taking all kinds of really really cool external data that's already getting managed in other systems and allowing you to now flow that and migrate that and merge that with your native information. So for us, right, I mean, I mentioned this at the at the top of the conversation, but we've got native Smartsheet data, like our day-to-day project management stuff. We've got all of our PO information and our sales order information, our project information, and that's coming from Acumatica. I've got logistics information that's coming from my WMS system. I've got all my salespeople activities that's coming from our third-party CRM, and we're able to take all of those things, kind of merge them together, and then build single reports and dashboards and these kind of portfolio style roll-ups that include information from all those different sources. And that's the 2-minute kind of nutshell version of kind of what it is and what it offers.
So I put that up on the screen, Smartsheet Data Shuttle. I like the name of that. That's great. It's like a airport shuttle, getting people to their hotels or something, moving data around. That basically, I assume on the bottom there, when you say intake forms, is that something where, like, I've never used this in Smartsheet. You can design something where people can then sort of like it becomes like a screen where people can input stuff in a nicer format than a table. I assume that's what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I can pull one of those up. We can do one live. It's pretty native. It's all no code, low code. The entire stack here is all just point and click type stuff. But yeah, basically you define a sheet with the columns and the properties and the things that you want to capture. And then on every single sheet, there's one of the menu bar options is want to create a form for this. And without sharing underlying permissions to the form or underlying permissions to the database, right, the source of where everything's going to live, you can send out a web form to anyone and everyone and just get intake back, and based on those submissions it's going to start populating different rows on your sheet.
Hey, you're basically creating a screen, like you're creating a screen in Acumatica, but simpler version of it.
100%.
And what about
Yep.
connectors and integrations? Is that both of those things? Are those Data Shuttle, or what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so similar to again, if I draw my parallels correctly to the Acumatica world, right? You kind of have your ISV kind of integration partners, right? So
Okay.
your solvers, your data selfs, your things like that, right? Your trails, that can do all kinds of native connections, right, to certain modules, to certain at least data hooks and whatnot inside of the system, and port them back and forth. Smartsheet offers a very similar type of thing, right? It's a kind of this native library that can talk to Salesforce, it can talk to Jira, it can talk to Box, it can talk to Teams, it can talk to basically the entire Microsoft suite. So it's kind of those native kind of plugins that don't actually cost anything extra. They're just kind of, hey, activate them here, activate them there, and it's these kind of pre-canned tools, these pre-canned connectors. Data Shuttle is in that same kind of verbal category, I would say, but it is actually, I think its official designation is a premium add-on. It's just an extra tool that you would kind of buy, but you access it the same way. It's still part of your Smartsheet tenant. It's datashuttle.smartsheet.com instead of app.smartsheet.com, and they're all basically tied to each other. Yeah.
Okay. What's then is an integration? So connector sounds like it's a way to connect to all these different applications. What's integration to you? Is that like a custom built connector?
Yes and no. So they have basically like an open REST API that you can kind of piggyback on, and you can basically create API keys for any sheet or any column on any source of data that allow you to port things in and out. So I would say, yeah, that's probably my best definition of it, right? Is the ability to kind of just expose via kind of common language and common protocols information in and out.
Okay. So Data Shuttle for you, it sounds like you're mainly using a connector, an official connector as an input, I think. And then you run it. Data Shuttle's more like the data manipulation, how to move it into Smartsheet, something like that.
So there is actually no native Acumatica connector, right, to Smartsheet. There was at one point somebody that had published on GitHub a pretty nice and pretty robust API connection, but I think that kind of lost support once we hit 23R1 on the Acumatica platform. I think a couple of those things broke. So what we actually do to get our information into sheets from Acumatica is obviously we write GIs just like everybody, and then from there we've done it a couple of different ways. So we've set up business events that'll export the GI as a Excel file or CSV file and email it to a recipient, and then the recipient can as simple as drag and drop that that attachment onto a sheet, and then Data Shuttle will say, oh, when a new attachment shows up, go do X, Y, and Z. You can also set it up where you port that exported information in your Excel or CSV format to a OneDrive location or a Box location or something like that, and based on a timed cadence or a schedule throughout the day, it can go and just pull the updated information from there. And the most fun and exciting way that we've recently set it up is actually right after the user group where I met you a month or so ago. And it's using Power BI to basically pull the information via OData straight out of Acumatica, manipulate it there a little bit, and then using Power Automate to set it up in a nice table and update it on a certain triggered sequence. And then as that lives in a OneDrive or a SharePoint location, Smartsheet, same thing, is just going to say, oh, let me run my Data Shuttle workflow, and every night for us, right? We kind of have them running at 1 hour increments, overnight. So Power BI runs at 1 a.m., Automate runs at 2 a.m., Smartsheet runs at 3 a.m., and basically we have all of our shipping information, our quoting information, our sales information live in our Smartsheet tenant every day from the previous day's transactions.
So why don't we look at that? Why don't you show me that? But actually, before you show me that, let's show the end result. I always like looking at the dashboard first. I think you've got one dashboard that you are graciously going to share with us. Always the trickiest thing about doing a live broadcast is having something to show. But you got one for us. Maybe let's start with the dashboard. I'll put that on the screen.
Yeah, for sure.
You could then talk through the back end of it. But let's look at the front end of it. Yeah, here's what a user experience is. All right, so we're in Smartsheet.
We're in Smartsheet. So as we're kind of looking here, and I'll cheat real quick too, and I preloaded a couple of tabs just in case there was some latency when we were seeing that before.
Zoom, like do a plus, control plus a couple times. Yeah, a little bit more even if you can. Perfect. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, it starts to lose some of the headers, but all good. So this is what I was saying before, right, is that you only have these three unique types of things, right? So you've got sheets, which is your little blue squares. You've got reports, which is your little orange squares. and then your dashboards, right, which is your kind of green circles. And that's pretty much it. And then the rest of it is just, standard file structure and this and that. So as you click into things, you could just do some nice labeling. But this is it, right? These bottom three, that's Smartsheet in a nutshell. And it's just what you decide to, populate on each of those things is where you can kind of, get real creative with it. So I'll start back on kind of this executive summary kind of style dashboard. So this was just a dashboard of dashboards where we natively embedded a little bit of integration. So I'll do a live kind of hey, edit this thing. You can click on a little tile, and you can say, hey, if I click on this tile, which for me was just a generic image, I found online, they looked generic enough that this seemed like a cool thing. And then you could say, hey, widget behavior, go and open another asset. So from here, you can basically build a website or build an intranet style site inside of Smartsheet to say, hey, jump from this to this, from this to this, from this to this. So this is basically all this kind of executive summary is the homepage. So we'll jump out of that, and we can just jump straight into the.
You mentioned that, it makes me think. Acumatica dashboards, similar thing. I think you can use them as a landing page for, going just as a place to have all your buttons in one place. You can do the favorites, but dashboards are another way to do it. I'll just make a couple comments on the Acumatica ones. Something I've noticed, a couple things I've noticed. One is you can actually, I'm trying to do it right now on my screen. You can do a link type, dashboard type. Actually, you mind if I'm going to share my screen real quick?
Yeah, please.
Just to put it in Acumatica language as well. Here. Sorry, give me a second.
Yeah.
See, this is the clunky.
I'll pull up my one attempt at an Acumatica dashboard.
Oh, you got it. Perfect. Now let's just use yours. So you do design there. Hey, can you zoom in also on this one?
Yeah.
And then do design there, and do add new widget. And then the one I'm thinking of is links. So if you do the link, then click next. Couple things about it. One thing, you have to pick in that form field, you have to pick a screen in Acumatica. And I like on your Smartsheet one how you have the option to either pick a Smartsheet screen or just a URL. I'd love to see just give us a way to do any URL. So there's one thing I'll say. It's a super simple thing to do, right? But I don't know why we don't have that. And then the second thing I've noticed is I've built dashboards where it just has a ton of links, where I basically used it the same way you're doing it in Smartsheet. And one thing I noticed is it gets really slow. Loading all the links will take a while. And so my workaround for that is to actually do a wiki page. So if you do a wiki page, it's now just a static HTML page, and it'll load much faster. So a little tip there. It's clunkier to do the wiki page, but for the user, it's much better because it just loads right away. So if you're looking to have that one stop, here's all the things I need to use instead of using favorites, wiki page, in my opinion, practically speaking, is the way to go. Just a little messier to design it. Yeah, that one right there. It's just, you got to then build the wiki page, which is it sort of looks like code, but it's not. It's like a rich text editor. And anyways, just some comments on that. All right, let's get back to Smartsheet.
Awesome. Yeah, no. This is what I love is just doing it all on the fly, right? So as you were saying, yeah, exactly. And this is what I love too, is kind of that mini intranet style feel where you can just access your one page, load it as your home screen, and then once you're in there, you don't have to. You can obviously always go back and browse and do your searching and this and that, but for the most part, you can just click through, and get everywhere that you want to get to. So we can just jump straight into kind of my pre-con dashboard, right, which is my all my quoting information. So just with a simple click on that, this is now going to kind of load my entire estimating kind of workspace. So from here, I'll kind of talk just at a high level through kind of what's being shown.
Let's see how far we can zoom without losing stuff.
Yeah, let's go in.
Oh, you can even do it right there in the. That's interesting. Does the browser zoom make? Oh, that works. Yeah, that works. This works.
Yeah, what it is because all the widgets that are in here, they always try to auto scale to kind of maximize the screen width. And if you have certain things that are oriented, further left or right than maybe some of the assets above, when you do the other wheel, they can sometimes get lost. But this is hopefully pretty good. It's less about the numbers. It's more about kind of the look and the feel of everything. So yeah, so like from up here, right, you'll see I got a couple of different styles of graphs, right? And we'll kind of walk through a handful of them. So here's just your fun kind of bar graphs from the side, and this is kind of plotting, hey, targets and actuals and this and that. These are just individual metric widgets, no different than what we can kind of see over in the Acumatica space, where you're just dropping a number with a label and something to that effect. But what I think is pretty cool in here, right, is that here's this is highlighted in red, right? It's showing a kind of little delta, and you can actually use that underlying conditional formatting that's living on that actual sheet. So what I love is like on a GI, for example, you can do the conditional formatting of certain cells by going and finding the formula reference and figuring out what the form number is and doing kind of your colored callouts and stuff. For you to then go ahead and embed that or say that, hey, based on the sum of X, Y, and Z, you want it to be red, green, yellow, et cetera, to just help draw attention. That's something that's pretty nifty about kind of these underlying widgets. So if
So
I
you're
go right
saying
here, I
that
can
color that's
edit this.
defined on the 33 million, that's defined in the smart sheet, it's not something you define on the dashboard?
Correct. Yeah. So right here, this is
Oh,
that. Hey,
interesting.
use my formatting from my source
Oh,
page.
interesting. Okay.
So again, it's something that's kind of fun. So right. So this is just a metric widget, but you have the flexibility to kind of make all these little changes. And every single one of these these individual fields, these data fields, you can add extra labels. You can add different text formats. They've got a whole different text library at this point where it's started to grow. So definitely some cool stuff. Some expanded things that exist on the visual basis that I think are pretty cool.
And then do you find there, so that 33 million
So
again,
as we kind of
the trickiest thing about dashboards is not the look. Like everyone can create something that looks nice. It's the calculations that happen under the hood. And so like that calculation that's happening, is that an actual dashboard calculation or it's a calculation in the Smartsheet?
Yeah, so in its current format, and this is my best attempt again without being a Smartsheet employee or affiliated, my best attempt at kind of explaining the current state versus the future state. In the current state, every single thing that you see here, whether it's a graph, whether it's a widget, whether it's pulling a specific value or plotting it on a visual, all of these things are getting pulled from another sheet, right? So they've got to get referenced from somewhere. So if I pop
I
into our
actually
little
like
editor
that.
again.
I like that because now your calculations you can do with like Excel style calculations. It's sort of like a Velixo in a sense that it's a cell by cell calculation, and then I'm just showing that on the dashboard because that's the tricky thing with Acumatica dashboards is getting those calculations to happen. Now you're just basically doing it in a spreadsheet. That's
a, a
interesting.
thousand a thousand percent, and that's
Huh.
my personal preference too, and that's what I love. So that's kind of the current state, and I'll jump over really quick too, and I'll show you kind of the metadata behind the screens of where I'm actually doing all those calcs so that we can show these numbers and we can show these graphs. And actually, while this one loads, I'll back it up even a step further. So, we said all this information is coming from Acumatica, and it's true. So in Acumatica, right, I have my GI that's written. For me, it's just, hey, it's project quotes for metrics, and I'm looking at the project quote style record. We put a couple of conditions and whatnot in there, but in essence, right, I'm just outputting information. Pretty basic kind of table data. This is what's now getting run behind the scenes. ODAT is pulling this and it's automatically uploading it into our sheet. So we go from this behind the scenes, it dumps into Data Shuttle, and Data Shuttle says, cool, thank you very much. And it's going to copy all that information and it's going to dump it into my source sheet. So again,
Yes,
sheets,
I'm
reports,
not going to let you
dashboards.
brush over that super quickly because I think it's quite hilarious actually how you're doing it. Hilarious in that it's how you do it in the real world. So tell me a little bit more about how is it getting from that GI that you just showed us? What's the next step? What's actually reading the O data from Acumatica?
Yeah, so that's I'll pseudo kind of drag it over here, and this is some of this
Oh,
I
you don't
can't
have
show
to
all the
show
fun
it. You can just
details of,
talk to
right?
it. I know.
But in essence,
Yeah, you don't have to
and
show it.
this is where okay, but yeah, right. So after having met with you, right, we basically you're going to create a Power BI kind of semantic model, and that's basically going to be your OData connector. So that's going to go ahead and it's going to go and look at this GI. And then once it gets published to the the web version, you're going to set up the cadence that says, hey, run this on on some type of a a schedule. So here was the last time that it ran. It was triggered to run at 1 a.m. It finished its run at 1:16, and basically every night it points to that GI via OData, and it says pull in more info, pull in more info, pull in more info. We then pop over to Power Automate. Power Automate says, hey, there is a Power BI table that exists inside of your Microsoft tenant. Thanks so much. You have access to it. And what Power Automated is doing, and this is one of my sample ones. I kind of have these sectioned out a little bit under some of the other admin accounts, like service accounts. But in essence, you're creating a flow that says, hey, go and look at that table and refresh the data on some Excel that just lives in SharePoint or lives in OneDrive with the table data from your Power BI basically export. So Automated now doing that heavy lift of, from A to B.
There's the part that I just crack up on because it's so real. Like, this is the reality of things, I think, in a lot of cases. Yeah, you're using Power BI just as a piece of the data refresh. Then you're using Power Automate, and you're only using Power BI because it's the way to talk to Acumatica. Then it lands in Power BI just as a temporary place. Then you're using Power Automate as the way to get it out of Power BI and into what? Excel. And Excel is going to live in OneDrive. So ultimately, what Smartsheet is seeing in your case is the Excel file. Now, I should point out I'm pretty sure there's a way to take Power Automate and have it look directly at the GI. And actually, Yuri is doing a webinar on Power Automate coming up here. If I find that, I'll put it on the episode page. But I'm pretty sure you can have it skip the Power BI step and just go right to Power Automate. But it's so funny to me that ultimately it's the Excel file that is really the key piece to shuttling the data between the systems. And so I just think
100%.
So when we get to data shuttle, we're now talking to an Excel file in OneDrive, right? It knows nothing about Power Automate, Power BI, Acumatica. It just knows there's an Excel file that it's going to refresh on, right?
Exactly, right. So then you create your data shuttle, and Smartsheet says, feed me information, and you say, I'd love to, and it says, and then you say, where can I feed it to you from? And it gives you these options. Hey, you can either attach it to a Smartsheet itself, you can pull it from OneDrive or SharePoint, or you can pull it from Google Drive or from Box, right? Or some of the other kind of standard open platforms there. So I say, yep, let me pull it from there. Let me log in with my ID credentials, and then hey, let me go and find the actual file name in that destination. And then once you're in there, you can this is no different than when you're actually doing like an Excel upload to Acumatica. You're basically just saying, hey, what's my source? What's my destination? What do I want to do with it there? Do I want to insert all records versus bypass existing versus overwrite existing, right? I think those are kind of the options on your Acumatica, import. Same idea here.
I want to highlight that because that's a big challenge that you have with Power BI, because Power BI can't just take the differential. You can use a tool like Data Self ETL Plus to do a differential, but by default, you just can't do it natively in Power BI. At least I haven't figured out how to do it. So I do like this, where you can set a primary key somewhere. Where was the primary key set?
Yeah, so that's down in mapping basically. Yeah.
So you're on that primary key, it's able to only update records. So I'm curious, in your case, are you dumping the whole data set, or are you just dumping like stuff that changed since yesterday from Acumatica?
So what Data Shuttle does is it says, hey, thanks for the Excel file that's got everything, going back to, whatever my initial date parameter was. In your case,
it's everything. You're doing everything.
But what Data Shuttle does is it says, hey, the only things I'm going to do to the sheet is add new rows. I could instead say, hey, replace all of the target sheet with the source sheet every single night and overlap it. But I'm effectively, by choosing this merge option instead of replace, I'm effectively only uploading the differential.
But back on your GI, you don't need to pull it up, but on your GI in Acumatica, is it showing everything, or it's only showing stuff that's been modified since yesterday? Looks like it's everything.
The GI is everything, yeah.
Yeah. So if you wanted to, though, because of those back on Smartsheet, because of those Smartsheet settings, and this is key, because when you get into any meaningful size of data where it starts to get big, you can't do the OData pull because it's going to time out on you. But what you could still do your same method of Power BI to automate to Excel, or cut out the Power BI part. But then the key would be design your GI So it's only showing you records that have been last modified within the last 24 hours. And then your Smartsheet's only going to take that data, and using the same settings you have on the screen, it's not going to wipe out everything. Like if you were to take a write to Power BI, it's going to wipe out everything. So I really like that feature. And I think it's funny that Smartsheet does that natively and Power BI still doesn't have that native option. And I find that to be interesting. So yeah, I really like that option. It's a good option.
I'll add one little caveat to that, right? So I think one of the other things that I always get worried about, right, is what if it breaks one night, right? What if my credential expires, right? What if the token doesn't pass in the right way, or we miss one timeout? Something else that I guess you could kind of do on the GI side of things is say, hey, don't just show me the previous day, but show me the previous week. So at least it's not lifetime or month to date or whatever it is. But give yourself a little bit of an extra buffer, especially when you have an extra tool like Smartsheet that's going to help you with some of the filtering. But instead of me filtering out 99% of the file every time, I could say, hey, only filter out 20% of it or something to that effect. So,
and why is that? Is that because if it fails one day, it would pick it up the next day?
Yeah, right. So, and that's where I have my alerts set up in Automate and my alerts set up in Data Shuttle to say if it failed, let you know. And then if it fails, I don't want to have to do a whole manual upload every time. I'd love to just say, oh, it failed. Okay, I fixed the credential, but when it runs tonight, it's going to look back more than a couple of days, and it's going to pick up the balance for 2 or 3 or 4 days in a row.
Good tip. I like that. Very good.
So, cool. So we're kind of walking through Data Shuttle. You get to pick kind of, hey, merge, update, etc. You can always just add new rows. You can delete. You can actually update rows as well. So this is what I love based on that unique ID field.
Yes, that's what I would utilize in that scenario. Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, right. So based on that unique ID field, it's not just, hey, if that unique ID is already there, if you hit add, it just says, cool, ignore it. But what update's going to do is say, hey, check that unique ID, and then check every other column value on that same unique ID's row, and let me make sure something there didn't actually get changed, right? Because every now and then, right, you might process a record, right? It might still be in an open state or something like that, and as it maybe gets reversed or as it gets modified or as it maybe gets rejected in an approval step and then resubmitted, there's a chance that information that was initially uploaded has since been modified on that individual record level, and that's a really fun way to be able to kind of capture that stuff. In this case, I know my information is kind of static. It's, hey, once you send the quote, you sent the quote. It's not changing. So for me, the add was the appropriate choice here. I didn't want it to override any of my other historical stuff, but you do have that flexibility in the Data Shuttle tool. So then as you're going, right, just like in your GIs, just like in Power BI, just like even in Automate, you basically have at every single one of these kind of positions, along your data's journey as it leaves the one platform and gets to the other. You have additional ways that you can kind of filter stuff down or manipulate information or change the formatting or something like that. I had already done a whole bunch of filtering at my GI level. I then did a little bit more polishing of it in Power BI. So by the time it's actually arriving at Data Shuttle here and it's ready to go into our Smartsheet, it's already formatted well. So I didn't have to filter anything else out. The mapping is the mapping. You're just, you're processing your columns kind of from left to right. So again, no different than your typical, upload, workflow inside of Acumatica, where you're choosing your source and your destinations, kind of column names, making sure that all the right information gets kind of ported over. And then you could set up your the cadence or the schedule for your run options as well. So when you're pulling from a file share destination, you can set up a schedule. When you're running it as a sheet attachment, which is sometimes super helpful as well, because maybe you don't always have that info ready to go at the exact same time every day or something like that. You could still manipulate and manually export a file and then do a drag and drop. And then based on that, your schedule to run it would be, hey, run on attachment, run every time a new file gets detected, something to that effect.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What that would be if something happens in the Smartsheet itself.
So I would say, right. So what we're looking at here, right? This is kind of the fully automated version, right, or the fully automated example, where it's user sets it up one time and then set it and forget it, and this thing is just cruising and running because all of my tools along the way are doing their things on their schedules. So this would be kind of a bad example to look at. If you leave this example and instead I go and say, hey, let's look at one that's a sheet attachment. So here's one, right? It's my inventory from my warehouse. Sometimes my warehouse is really good at sending us a file the right way, and you can use Power BI Automate to take it from an email or take it from a file share destination and this and that, and then process it accordingly. But sometimes they'll send it on a Monday, and sometimes they send it on a Thursday, and sometimes they send it 2 days after the end of the month, and sometimes it's one day before the end of the month, right? And it gets a little bit more kind of loosey goosey in that regard. So one of the other ways that you can do it is say, hey, I don't want you to automatically run. I want you to just look for an attachment to that sheet. So on the underlying Smartsheet, one of my people can receive an email and say, oh, let me just drag and drop this on there, drag and drop this on there. Still very low lift from the user. But in that case, the run option is, hey, run this workflow every time a new attachment gets added.
Cool. I like that.
So yeah. So we kind of beat up Data Shuttle, and to your point, right? This data has worked its way through a whole chain worth of information at this point, and now eventually, and here's one that's running right now, right? So this was an example of one that I think I set to run, every few minutes, right? Or every 15 minutes, I think. So this is basically running and saying, hey, there were 11 rows already in the file, nothing got changed right now, so it's all good, it's all good, it's all good. If you go back, in history, it kind of shows you the log of everything that's kind of been run. I can pull up another one here. Let's look at our warehouse inventory. So here's that great kind of example of the differential file, right? Hey, this file had something like 1,800 rows in it. 1,700 of them and change were already in the file before. They were already ported into the sheet, so nothing new here. But 160 of them, those were brand new, and 160 other ones, those got changed. So, or they're no longer in the source. So let's delete them and let's get them out of here. So this is I would say a cool example of kind of showing that flow and showing at least the report of what was the change after the workflow ran.
I like that. I'm gonna pull some. I'm trying to finish. Give me a second here. I'm finishing before. Yeah, so that's basically it. Like that's how you're at the end of the day, the data shuttle, the data is landing in. Yeah, right here. It's landing into nothing special about this. It's a regular Smartsheet sheet. Is that what I would call it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, 100%. So like here's my auto log, and this was me popping in here a whole bunch, but cells changed and this and that. It shows you kind of all the people that touched it or everything like this. But anytime next to this you see the little gear wheel, this is telling you that, hey, one of your integrated applications or your API cycle, in my case Data Shuttle, it's saying, hey, something ran, hey, something ran, hey, something ran. New info got loaded, blah 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 blah. So that's kind of just your history on the sheet itself, but you'll notice that this information and this data, this is the exact same as what was in my GI, but now it lives in Smartsheet. So now I can report on it. Now I can do my formulas. Now I can do all that kind of stuff. So now that it lives here, and this is just, a mega file, it's, 6,000 rows or something like that. So great, cool. Now that it exists, now I can create another sheet. And let's see if this one finally loaded here. It's going to think again, but now this is where I would call these kind of my math sheets, my metadata sheets. Anyone who's done a dashboard before, everybody has a couple of different naming conventions for it. But in essence, now you're creating another sheet asset, so another place where data is going to live. And this is where you can just structure basically your sum if formulas and your count if formulas and your average if formulas and things like that. So
to me, that's the key to this whole thing. Like the dashboard part, to me, doesn't matter as much as the calculation part. And the fact that you can just do it with regular, I made the point before, but the regular cell calculations, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. So hopefully this is zoomed in enough and we can kind of get the gist, right? But basically what this is doing is it says, hey, cool, based on my date range, this, and this, hey, go and count my distinct records inside of this collected workspace and go and point here. And when you look on this, it says, hey, what's that reference? You can pop on the reference and it says, hey, I know we're in my math sheet right now, but I want you to go and I want you to pull the information from the source sheet, which is the one we were just looking at before, which is in essence my GI information. So GI information goes through its whole trail, its whole navigation, gets dumped into the source, and now that it at least exists in the Smartsheet tenant, I can do math on it all day. It's really acting up on me now because I think I've beat it up a little bit, but you could basically get the gist, and then from here, this is where you can write all kinds of different formulas, and the formula library for Smartsheet is pretty robust. Let me see actually if I can I have
Yeah, I
it
saw
saved
that
in my
one called
bookmarks. I'll see if
Collect. Like
I
that
can
was
pull it up for you.
never seen that one before.
Smartsheet formulas. Here we go. They call it the functions list. That was my bad. But in essence, yeah, they've got an entire library of things that are, in essence, very similar to a lot of your core Excel style, function calls. But some of these other ones, again, like the collect and like their ability to do index match. They're a big fan of index match over VLOOKUP. So their ability to constantly just reference tables of data and multiple, like 2D references, not just a single column or something like that. They've definitely put a really nice kind of set of distinctive additional call outs and parameters that you can use to kind of get that stuff down. So yeah, this is
I
this
really
is an
like
example
that.
of kind of that list. So yeah, here if you
So,
want to steal this website here, you can throw that in the chat as well. But it's yeah.
well, I already did. I already put it. It'll be on the episode page. I'll pull that up here. It will be,
Perfect.
and within a few minutes of us finishing this episode, it'll be on the episode page at augforums.com/episode 159. That's really cool. I like that.
Awesome.
So, we talked about this before going live, but I want to bring it up right here. I think it's super user friendly, and I like that about what you're showing me here. Like, this is super low code, no code, very clean. I think there's always pros and cons. To me, the con is that if you're going to do this with really large data sets, I think you're going to start to pay. To tell me, actually, maybe we just Google it. Give me the limitations on a Smartsheet sheet. And I think we looked it up before, and it was like there's a limitation on the rows and the cells, or maybe just on the cells. Let's just do a quick Google and find what that is.
Yeah, so I think it was like a half a million rows was the limit, but let's go Smartsheet sheet limits. Let's see what good old Gemini pulls out for us. Yeah, half a million basically cell. Yeah, 20,000 rows, 400 columns, and this is your default limitations when you get to I think when you're on kind of the basics plan, right, or kind of just like the pro plan or things like that. As you can kind of level up and get to some of the the enterprise level, at least kind of subscription plans and stuff. I think they do increase these things a little bit. And again, one of the things that they've shared, I would say, a lot on their roadmap recently is that the new kind of core platform. So they're moving away from this grid view and they're calling it table view now instead. And it's a completely different way of processing and processing and maintaining and displaying data. And with some of those, I think upcoming changes that we're going to already start to see, probably Q4 this year and really Q1 of next year. I have a feeling that a lot of those limits are going to increase.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So, but like on your standard plan, then I want you to talk to your Chelsea lighting plan in a minute. But before we go there, 500,000 cells is not a ton, especially when you're looking at regular Excel. Excel can handle a little bit over 1 million rows in the Excel file. And then if you throw a Power Pivot at it /Power BI, you don't really even have a limit. You can handle millions of rows. But what I think is really interesting for me here and enlightening for me here is for your company, typical company in the Acumatica space, you've never really, like the amount of data you're processing, you don't really care about millions and millions of rows that much. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, it's something to be aware, to keep in mind. It's going to depend on how much data you're processing if you want to do it this way. But then your specific example, I know you said you've got more capacity in your Smartsheet tenant. Maybe you can tell us ballpark number of users that you're licensed for and ballpark how much you're paying a year for Smartsheet.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll pull up this is kind of the generic Smartsheet pricing plans. So everybody knows I'm not just making them up off the top of my head here. So super basic plans, right? Or I would say pretty cost competitive kind of in the marketplace here. We are on an enterprise plan with the advanced work management, extra kind of bonus, which is what includes a lot of those extra, kind of tools that we were talking about, right? Like Data Shuttle, Control Center, which I didn't even get really a chance to mention, Data Mesh, Pivot, all these other kind of tools that very similar to Data Shuttle that help with data manipulation, both in and out of the system. This entire additional product suite really helps with those things. So we are on the advanced work management kind of version of the enterprise plan. We have just about 60 users at this point, and they got rid of the licensing model. They now refer to it as memberships instead. So just a nomenclature change, things like that. I think they call it the USM model. And in essence, everybody that's in your tenant, anybody that's got basically your same shared domain name, is invited to your tenant, and they count as a member. And that's how they basically price your plan. And then as you add on some of these extra kind of components, those will obviously influence some of the some of the spend and whatnot as well. But overall, I mean, you do have the ability to kind of buy some of these extra things, onesie twosie. So Data Shuttle down here, I think I mentioned it before. You could buy it as a one-off without buying the entire other product suite for $100 a month, which for me is a steal. They should be charging triple this for how valuable of a plugin this tool really is. So overall, yeah, as a firm, our annual spend, up in kind of the enterprise grade stuff with all these extra tools ends up being the equivalent of about $1,000 per user, per year. So divide that out a little bit, and it's right around call it $100 a month, right? A little less. So from a per user basis, the fact that can effectively be the full backbone of our entire PMO, and you can port in info and do all this other reporting and dashboarding, it's a no-brainer for us.
And so did you say about 50 users for you guys? What was it?
We're between 50 and 60 users, yeah.
Okay. So it's like 50 to 60,000 a year for your specific situation, using, it sounds like, all the bells and whistles of Smartsheet. For the most part,
yeah.
you're on the heavier end of Smartsheet users, 50 to 60, and you're using it as 51%, I think we're going to call it earlier, of your ERP solution. But then it's also your dashboarding solution as well with the Data Shuttle. I like that. I do want to pull up here, while we still have time, something I hadn't thrown at you yet, but I want to get your thoughts on it. Let me pull this up here. So right now what you're doing is the blue flow on the top. You start with an Acumatica generic inquiry, OData, sending it into Power BI just because it knows how to speak OData. Then from there into Power Automate, just because it knows how to translate data into an Excel file. And then from Excel into Smartsheet Data Shuttle. To me, it'd be cleaner if you did the orange flow, if you had a way to go right from Acumatica into OneDrive, right? And then Smartsheet would still pick it up from there, right? It would eliminate some steps. And I'm curious, back on your screen, if you could pull up, since you've got your screen shared. Oh, you did. Maybe it's gone.
So I moved you back to my center here. Yep, I'm back.
No, I see it. I see it. Hold on. Let me pull it back up. Go into Acumatica for me, if you don't mind. And here's one thing I've wanted a way to do this cleanly, and it might be out there and I might just not know about it. That's very, very possible. But to me, for that orange flow that I had up on the screen, what I would love to have is if you go search for the data provider screen. So if you work with import scenarios before in Acumatica, I assume?
Predominantly when we were doing our initial rollout, but every now and then, yeah, we'll still use them to help with bigger data changes. Yeah.
Okay, so import scenarios, I think, are pretty common that people at least are familiar with them. But then there's also something called an export scenario, which is just the same thing but in reverse. And an export scenario, if you click in the provider type magnifying glass. So I think these are actually inputs. Give me a second. I'm trying to remember actually how this works. Yeah, here's where I wasn't quite ready for this. So yeah, you do have an Excel one. So we could send it to Excel. The challenge then is, are you able to pull up like an existing one, maybe one that doesn't have sensitive data in it? One that's got an Excel file. Use the name lookup.
Yeah, I'm in the, yeah, so we'll do.
Whatever you think would be the most innocuous data.
Yeah,
And then,
business accounts is just going to be, yeah, customer names. So that's probably fine.
And actually, you know what? We don't even have to pull it up. So go to files in the upper right and hit edit. Yeah, don't hit that. Yeah, hit edit. So you can have an export file, send it to Excel, but then it's just kind of messy the way it works. Like it creates the Excel file, but it's still in the Acumatica framework kind of thing. I think it even creates it in the database. But then you see that synchronization button on the right. Click on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then click synchronize. We're not going to save this, so don't worry. Don't. And then do synchronization type right here. So right here, this is like really clunky and old school. You can synchronize it with an FTP or yay, a secure FTP. That's what SFTP is, or a shared folder. And here's where I still kind of wonder if there might be a way to use the HTTP option, although it's like, why isn't that HTTPS, right? Or there might be a way to use the shared folder, but this is like really dated in this area. But to me, it would make perfect sense if I had a way to send it right to OneDrive, to synchronize it to OneDrive. Or even better, let's forget the clunky export scenario process of generate the Excel file in the database and then have to synchronize it out to OneDrive. I'd rather just go straight to OneDrive. And so what I actually worked with the developer like a year ago to mock up a prototype of this, and I wasn't able to get it ready to show right here, but I will include some screenshots on the episode page of the prototype. And the prototype was basically throw a processing screen on top of generic inquiries and just allow you to process any GI on whatever schedule you want directly to a OneDrive folder. And we got it to work. But what I was specifically looking for, and why I sort of paused the idea, I was specifically looking for a way to send millions of rows. That was my use case, right into OneDrive. And it did time out. Like I tried even 500,000 rows and it timed out. But for your use case, because you have the ability to only have the differential refresh in your Smartsheet data shuttle, this might work for you. And so I'm going to send you some screenshots, and I could even just connect you with a developer and you could be a guinea pig on it if you want. But essentially, it would be a way to eliminate those middle steps in the blue and just turn it into right from Acumatica to OneDrive and have Smartsheet pick it up from there. What are your thoughts on that? Live on air. Never told you about it before.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, we were joking, obviously, right? About this data has gone through a number of different flows. So yeah, eliminating even one of those blue boxes would be a dream. I mean, obviously, there's the other option of kind of the clunky workaround now, where you can do a business event that emails a Excel file to a user, and then you can import it on a Power Automate in that regard. And we had tried that as well. But honestly, it's funny that I think with even honestly, some of our email accounts and the email providers and things like that, Acumatica's ability to work with some of the latest changes on the security side of the Entra ID kind of environment haven't seemed to necessarily be in sync. So anything that's involved me trying to piggyback the Microsoft stuff, we've always kind of run into issues there. I mean, even enabling MFA for the tenant, so that people could just sign in with their Microsoft MFA or single sign on. Even some of that was a little bit clunky to kind of get it together. And again, I think I look at it too, where yeah, it's in the blue, the boxes. We're going through a lot of steps. We're touching a lot of different destinations, but from the ability to do it 100% in house without any extra kind of customizations, without frankly having to bother or talk to my VAR about any of that stuff. This was something that a couple of us that have used Power BI once before. We said, oh great, this is cool. Like I'll be able to figure it out. So in principle, absolutely, Orange Box is the dream. But I think some of the challenges is just getting it set up and getting it configured and getting the permissions to kind of handshake appropriately. That still are going to meet, I would say, some of the baseline security requirements of just the rest of the Microsoft tenant that we're in.
It's interesting you mentioned security on the email side. I thought you were going to say file size limitation. Because I mean, typical email is like limited to 20 meg attachments or something like that, and you didn't even get that far. It sounds like that's interesting, huh?
Yeah. And
So
I mean, if you export it as CSV too, I mean, it's I don't need any of it formatted, right? It's like I just want the content. So I think that's been less of an issue is file size and row size and data size for us. But yeah.
interesting. Well, I think you're definitely gonna be interested in this. I'll send you some screenshots, hook you up with a developer. But Orange World on the screen here is definitely like geeky efficiency world, right? What I still love about what you're doing is that's real world and it works, right? At the end of the day, and we maybe even do a whole nother episode on this at some point. You mentioned you're running on EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system. I've done a few
Yep.
episodes on that in the past, and the whole like real world of how you're associating dashboards to the way you do things in a company that runs on EOS. I'd love to talk more about. At the end of the day, that's what matters. And it sounds like you're doing, what'd you say, like a 1 o'clock refresh on the first blue box, then like a 1:30 or 2 o'clock a.m. on the second.
Yeah,
And
1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Yep. So then by the
yeah,
time
like
my users show up, it's ready to go.
yeah, as long as you're not in an international situation where you're crossing continents, you have enough time to work with at night to make that refresh happen, even if you have to hop through a few hoops like you're doing now. And I love your point about like you just got it done without having to involve an outside consultant. I love that because it looks a little messy when you get all geeky and technical, but it works. And I just love that. So yeah, the blue one is working in the real world and impacting your business. Maybe we'll get to the orange world someday, but even if you don't, what you're doing now is works, and that's really at the end of the day what matters more than being super efficient, lean Six Sigma, geeky technical, the
Exactly.
right formulas and all that. Like that doesn't matter as much as impacting the business in a real way, right? And you're doing that, so I absolutely love that. It's really cool.
Awesome.
Well, Mark, any other like anything we missed? Anything else we wanted to bring up?
I
We
mean,
got to wrap it up.
tough question to ask me. I mean, I'm kind of put a quarter in me, and I'll talk about Smartsheet for however long you'll have me. So, yeah, I mean, no, I think it's just a cool tool, and I actually do think that the handshake between the two of them, even though there's nothing published, there's nothing online, there's no native connectors or anything. I think the way that the two platforms handshake with one another is actually pretty clean and it's pretty easy. And Smartsheet has definitely done a little bit more on the UX side of things, in recent history here. Obviously, Acumatica is making their changes with 25R2 now and 26R1 hopefully coming out at least early access stuff. To some of you guys, in the near future here, and there's obviously UX improvements there with the whole modern UI schema. So I think that's starting to become super prevalent just in the data space, and being agnostic of the fact that while there's still data people behind the scenes that are making it appear, you want to have people of all technical backgrounds, novice to advanced, with the ability to go in and manipulate these things or do them on the fly. And I think that both of these tools seem to have a pretty cool trajectory, or at least pipeline for making progress, to make that a reality. So that's my closing thought.
You had a hard stop at 2:30, or did you have another like 10 minutes or so?
My 2:30 got canceled, so I can keep going. Let's do it.
All right, let's put anot's quarter in you. You said
Let's do it.
I was curious if you could fill the forms. I've never seen Smartsheet forms, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Let me try to get back to our tenant here, and we'll pull something up. This
And
is
to your
actually one
UX
that.
side, it just seems like Smartsheet has done that really well. They've done a really good job of having a very clean user experience. And so never seen a Smartsheet form. I've seen like a Google form, but I'm curious to see how clean that looks, how much it looks like a screen versus a page. And you might not have caught all of that. Looks like it's chopping a little bit. You still there?
Yeah, sorry. This is my network slowing down. It's yelling at me because I've been on video so long.
No problem.
Let's see if it
Well,
loads here.
we'll see if we can pull it off. While it's pulling up, I want to point out: are you able to show us your background? Your background is not a a virtual background. It's an actual background out your window there, right? Are you able to show us that? It's blurry right now. Are you able to unblur
Yeah,
your
hold on, let me
background?
turn off my blur here.
See if I can get you
Yeah, here
to.
we'll unblur and I'll open my curtain too here. Hang on one sec, I'll stand up.
Oh yeah. Let's see it. Let's see it. Yeah, you're the only one on screen now. Oh, perfect. Yeah, I zoomed in on it. So you are actually in New York City, and I think you said you're on 34th Street, right? Is that where you're at?
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is 34th Street West, right behind me here. So this is some of the Hudson Yards buildings. And yeah, if I could pull my camera any further, but yeah, that one right there, that's one of the Hudson Yards buildings. That's one of the other ones right there, and you can kind of see the Hudson River just kind of through the chute there. So yeah, we're in real life. We're in an office company, so we are indeed in person, real windows.
That's really cool. And so 34th Street, I think, is like the 34th Miracle on 34th, headquarters of Macy's, and the starting point of the Macy's Day Parade. So maybe you'll be sneaking into the office on during the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Yeah. We're lucky enough. We actually just moved office spaces. We were in the same building, but we were in kind of the other end of the building, looking out back to the 35th Street side of things. So we just occupied this new space about 2 weeks ago, and yeah, some of the C-suite has the offices that face east, and we're literally half a block away from Macy's. So you can see the end of the parade, right outside some of their windows. So there will definitely be some folks here on a Thursday in a few weeks from now, trying to get a good glimpse.
That's really cool. That's cool. Let's see. Let me get
So
your screen back up on here.
yeah, finally
All right,
loaded.
all right, we got it now. So yeah, form.
Awesome.
I'd love to see a form. Let's check that out.
For sure. So this is actually one that working on working on actively right now. So you'll kind of get the gist here. This is once again another sheet. The sheets where all the magic happens. Our blue squares we love. So whatever you configure kind of some basics here. This is all just dummy data that we've been kind of playing around with so far. But once you kind of set up one of these sheets, you say, cool. Now I want someone to actually go and provide me intake information for this. So every one of your sheets has your form option right up top here. And we've actually already set one up, so I'll pop into that one, but we're going to start actually by just doing a brand new create new. So with create new, right off the bat, it's going to say, hey, these are all the fields from your sheet, and we think that you want to pull those over. So these are the names of all my columns, and right off the bat, with no extra clicks, right? You saw I just hit brand new form. It imported every single one of these things. And now from here, you can reconfigure them. You can make these required fields. You can hide certain things. You can make one of these things, show it as multiple lines because you want people to add more information. This can be a drop down, so I can say, hey, choose it from a list instead, or truly choose it as a drop down in that regard. Things like that. So this happened to be a web form we were sending out as a survey to some of our internal employees to kind of rate some of the factories we're working with, so that we can give kind of good and clean, honest feedback, to them. That's truly, straight from kind of from the source. So this is pretty much it, right? So as you start to kind of pull these things together, you can also add additional logic too. So you can say, hey, based on the answer that somebody chooses to this thing, only show me the following 6, 7, or 8 options, and then based on some of these other things, only show me this, only show me this. So
Can you do
yeah.
validation logic as well? Like, so you're really using this, in my opinion, as an ERP platform. And so I know a very key thing in an ERP system is that when you press that save button, or even before you press that save button, being able to have business logic. Are you able to do anything like that? Like, don't allow it to save it. Can I write formulas? How extensive can we get in that logic area?
Yeah, so in its current form right now, the extent of the logic is truly, hey, based on what you choose in this field, either expose or don't expose subsequent fields, just chronologically on the form. That's the extent of it right now. But with part of kind of their equivalent to the modern UI update, right? They're basically changed to the core platform, to table view, to kind of timeline view and board view. They're making some changes to the form intake process as well, which will actually allow you to do that same type of crazy function calls that we showed on the metric sheet before. We're going to be able to input some of those things just natively on the form now as well. So if somebody chooses the wrong value here, you can already actually do an index match lookup to a different sheet. And instead of having them choose their department, I could say, well, hey, I have an HR sheet that's pulling in from my HRMS tool. If you choose your employee name, it's going to autofill the next 7 or 8 or 10 boxes. So it doesn't exist quite just yet. It exists on the sheet level. But just for the sake of pure, raw web intake, from here, right now the logic is a little bit more limited.
Interesting. Then what about the? I assume to fill in the form, you have to be like in the Smartsheet tenant, or do they have any type of captured data from a public URL option? How's that part work?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So here in the settings thing, right? So you could change some of the
Can you
layout
zoom in on this
options.
again? Sorry, are you able to
Yeah,
zoom in a little bit? I can't. There
yes,
we go.
sir.
Yeah, perfect, perfect.
Yeah. So right, so you could change a little bit of the UX stuff up top. Oh, make it left side, right side, etc. Hey, show the branding, don't show the branding, and then security require you to be logged in, require you to
Oh,
be
cool.
part of the tenant, or not. So for right now, again, this is just kind of whip. So we are frequently kind of testing this across a bunch of different accounts. So right now, yeah, anybody who got access to this web form, you could just spam me responses. But yeah, typically anything that we're going to send out internally like this, you'll end up flagging this stuff on. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems same concept as a Google form, which I've seen before, but it's like enterprise grade with enterprise grade options. I really like that. That's a cool idea.
For sure. So here we could do one like this. I'll choose my own name. I'll say I'm part of the logistics team, and then here you go. It's going to give me the chunk of logistics questions of how I can respond. If I change that and say, actually, just kidding, I'm on the finance team. Well, now it's going to give me the finance questions to respond to instead. So this is a very generic but kind of high level example of how some of that form navigation works. And yeah, I mean it's as simple as hey 1 2 2 3 blah 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 blah. So we'll submit all this stuff too. This is a test. I'll choose somebody from the drop down here.
Before you
And
click
then,
submit, I just want to point out
yep.
where this stuff starts to get complicated and why ERP systems exist, in my opinion, is because one, the business logic that gets complicated. And then two, when you start to have header level and row level information, that gets complicated. So right now it's basically just a giant header level. But when you have a concept of like header level, like you do on a accounts payable bill, and then you have individual lines, that starts to get tricky to allow people to build that stuff in a low code, no code fashion. But
Yep.
I think we're going to see it someday. When Microsoft came out with their version of this, which is Power Apps. So you've talked about Power BI, Power Automate. There's also Power Apps, which allows you to build essentially screens. Theirs is even more robust in how you do it. But when they came out with it, I'm like, I think it'd be really cool if Microsoft eventually built an ERP system on this platform. I don't know if they'll ever actually do it, but I just feel like the world's heading in that direction where your ERP system is like just totally no code, low code built within a framework of some sort. So anyway, sorry, go ahead. You click submit then.
No, absolutely. So yeah, right. So we saw here. I'll get out of the edit screen and whatnot here. So this is now just the actual underlying sheet itself. And now once you're on the actual form, you can go ahead and hit submit. You can always BCC yourself kind of on the response, and it just says cool, thank you. And then once you get back to the form, we can either wait for it live and it'll refresh. You'll see this turn kind of dark blue, and the new information will come, or in a couple of seconds you'll get the refresh wheel, and now from that form submission, the extra data will start to populate. So we'll see if we can force it through here.
Yeah, and the sheet that we're looking at here, a sheet is a sheet is a sheet, I think, right? Whether you brought it in via data shuttle like you're doing with the Acumatica data, whether it's coming in via a form, whether you're just typing it in, it's the same technology, I think, right?
Yep, 100%. So actually here, so while we're waiting for that one to pop up, I'll do we just create a new one from scratch, and I'll kind of show you the basics of a sheet and kind of those again back to those true kind of raw building blocks of everything. This was still refreshing. Yeah, I'm really putting the internet to work over here today.
I think it's funny that I'm in Ohio, middle of the country, and you're in New York City. I guess that's part of it. Like the more condensed the infrastructure, and you think it's better infrastructure, it's actually the opposite.
It's funny. Yeah, well, we'll come back to this one. Let's see if we can get one of
But
these
in
to
your
load.
experience, it lands there like pretty much right away. Sounds like.
Yeah, it's typically a lot faster. So here, this is saying, hey, we're going to create a new grid sheet, blah, 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 untitled sheet. So right off the bat, you always have to have a unique ID field. So no different, again, I think of it than records in Acumatica, right? You got to have something that's going to be unique. And it says, hey, it's got to be text number. It's got to be this thing and just do whatever. So in this case, we can call it item names. Or even item numbers, right? Then some of the other things, you can choose these different column types. So you can preload, populate drop-down values. You can, choose date formatted fields. Contact lists are great because now that's tied not just to a person's name, but their name, their email, their full, basically, in our case, Microsoft tenant, but you can sync it to, your kind of G Suite enterprise or, whatever other kind of, domain controlled platform you're actually using. They've got a nice symbol list as well too. So you can kind of choose your Harvey Ball kind of, selections for statuses and things like that, whatever it might be. And then they got a couple other system-driven columns, so you can auto number things. You can do timestamps for created, modified, etc. Some of, again, I would say those nice ERP kind of data tracking, audit trail types of fields that you can always kind of populate in. So
Yeah.
this is really the basics of the sheet. So yeah, we can say hey, this will be our date field, and we'll call it date, and then we could do another one, and we can call this status, and this will be our drop down of not started, in progress, completed. And then I don't know, we can do the symbols too. We love the symbols.
Can
And
you
something
do
that's
like to me the another common thing that happens in an ERP? Again, thinking of, does Smartsheet give you the ability to build an ERP at some point? Although in a sense you already are, but can you do like the equivalent of a lookup magnifying glass type of a field where it's going to look up and only allow you to select from values that are in another sheet somewhere?
Yeah, so part of that would be your drop down lists, right? And you can say, hey, restricted to the values that are on this list only. And one of the new things that they actually just launched, and it's I think I'm allowed to show it, but it's in beta testing right now. So if I change my view here and I go to our table view, which is just, again, their modern UX, their modern kind of UI to it. So it loads pretty quick. And then in here for my drop down list, I can actually make it dynamic. So I can say, hey, choose the values from another
Yeah.
sheet,
Okay.
and then
Yeah.
based on how some other record or table is being maintained, you can dynamically change what is able to be selected versus not able to be selected as you progress. And that's that kind of logic you were asking about on the form level before. It exists at the sheet, it just hasn't quite made it up to the intake process just yet. But yeah,
Got
but
it.
from here, you
Cool.
choose your lookup, and you go from there.
Yeah, I mean, this is way more robust. I had never really seen like Smartsheet Enterprise. You're like an enterprise customer, and I'm curious. You made some comments before we went live about you actually find that you're on the smaller end of like a typical Smartsheet customer. Like it, I always viewed Smartsheet as more of like an just a Excel file in the cloud. This really seems like much more of an enterprise application than I realized. And I look at you as like on the higher end of an enterprise customer. But talk to me more about like where you really see Chelsea Lighting in terms of the typical Smartsheet customer. Are you on like the lower end or the higher end in terms of really being an enterprise grade customer?
Yeah, so we're on the enterprise plan. We're an enterprise subscriber, but no, we're definitively in their kind of SMB market. We're officially in that kind of designation. I'm actually on one of their advisory councils, which is specifically for small, medium sized businesses, kind of their growth style council. And of that group, there's maybe 7 customer representatives, and myself and another gentleman, Will, we were both at firms that are only about 55 to 60 people, and we're the smallest even in the SMB council. So you've definitely got some firms that are 10, 12, 15 people or so that are probably using it in a very light, a kind of scenario, basic sheets, basic dashboards. But yeah, I would say at this portfolio style roll up where you can really do these kind of enterprise grade dashboards and enterprise grade kind of really lookups into multiple tiers worth of information. We're, I would say, definitely on the smaller side from a company perspective, personnel, revenue, all that, of their primary use case. I think
But
they like to
not
say
just
they're
like,
in. Sorry, God.
but not just like company size, but really in terms of how much you're utilizing Smartsheet. Like you really think you're on the smaller end? Like most of the companies are utilizing it even more, like the whole stack and all the bells and whistles and all that?
So that I think it's almost the opposite. So I think that you know,
That's
you
what I
get
was
to
getting.
some of these, yeah,
Okay,
you
yeah.
get to those Fortune 500, those Fortune 1000 companies, and I think yeah, they're probably using it for one super specific vertical or one super specific department case. A lot of the user group stuff that I go to, we went to one just a few weeks ago here in the city down at One World Trade. And the use case that was presented there was from PNC Bank. And PNC Bank's like, yeah, we use it for like our internal data team to basically plan, data projects and put things on a Gantt chart of, how long we think projects are going to take and, and implementations and and things like that. So for that group, it's like, yeah, they're a multinational, financial corporation, and they have a team of maybe 30 or 40 people that are using it. So yeah, from a full enterprise grade, it's not deployed company wide. It's certainly not deployed tenant wide. They don't have it in every aspect of their business. Whereas again, these smaller customers that are in the kind of the SMB category, yeah, I think we've a lot of us have found the value in being able to deploy it across pretty much every department and in every kind of niche of your org.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. Yeah. So you're really kind of a trailblazer, I think, in the Smartsheet space. It's cool to see that build out. I'm still wondering if we see a true full blown, like with financials ERP system at some point that's built on one of these low code, no code platforms, whether it's Power Automate, Smartsheet, or, there's a bunch of other ones out there as well. But Smartsheet's definitely a robust size company, right? And now I think private equity, back into private equity out of the public space, but yeah, definitely a
Correct.
legitimate or contender in the space. And I think yeah, so you said earlier it's headquartered in Bellevue, just where Acumatica's at. That's why they have their conference in the Seattle Convention Center, where
Yep.
Acumatica's having theirs at this year. So
Yep. Exactly.
yeah, this is interesting. Maybe we'll see even more synergy between the two. Maybe we can even get, Acumatica to skip the Excel part of the integration and let's get a data shuttle directly to Acumatica thing going here, right? Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely. Maybe you and I can make some intros. We'll try to put some people in touch. But yeah, that would be awesome. I would personally love that. So
Well, I'm going to connect you by email with a guy named Brad, and he does a lot with Smartsheet as well. And maybe the two of you could push for something like that. And I'll also put a link to the GitHub project you mentioned. I was pulling it up, and it looks like it was made by Deeran at Acumatica, and he does great stuff. He's the one who created the whole lot attribute customization. He's got a bunch of really good stuff out there. And so the core piece of it, I'm sure, is solid. It just needs someone to pick it up and support it ongoing, since I think you said it died around 2023 or something. But
yeah,
yeah.
because when we first went live, we were on 22 R1, and I remember when I pulled it up, it said, "Oh yeah, like this thing exists." And then by the time we got to a stable environment and everybody's trained up, and we were kind of done putting the fires out, and we were getting ready to cool, let's report on it, let's do the fun stuff. I remember, yeah, when I went back to do the GitHub pull, there was the little clarifier at the top that's like, "Hey, just so you know, this hasn't been maintained since the latest upgrade." So yeah, I think I think honestly the demand probably just wasn't there. They probably only had eight or 10 people using the thing. But now that both firms I think have grown significantly, even just since then, maybe there's more need for it again now.
I will put a link to that GitHub project. Yeah, let's see what we can find out in terms of making that more official going forward. All right, man. I'll let you get back to work. Again, totally appreciate you coming on and sharing all the Smartsheet stuff. Love it. And as a low code, no code person myself, I just love stuff like this. So it looks like a fun job over there. And thanks for sharing all your stuff with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me. This was great, and yeah, happy to do it again anytime.
I'll play a 30-second outro if you wouldn't mind. Just stay on a couple minutes after that. Just want to wrap up with a couple things offline here. But thanks again, Mark.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.